of types of conditioning. In that, which one is the most effective? I just gave you that. So just try to figure out outcome. That was the last part we were discussing, right? Am I right in that? So did anyone figure it out, like among all these four conditioning, which one is the most effective one when it comes to acquisition? Any answer? If you have any answer, then you can just type out there in the chat box. Or else, if you couldn't find it out, I'm just giving you that as task again to yourself. So get it, like find it out from the textbooks or the previous question papers. You'll be able to get that. Okay. So in learning section, so we had major focus on the classical conditioning, and then its application, all that we were discussing about, and its limitations, so all that. So the classical conditioning was mainly looking into one area, that is the association between stimulus and its response, right? Stimulus and its response. So the other school, and it was in the beginning, like it was almost all the learning processes or the behavior, some of the pioneers were able to explain that, but they found out that it is not always the case of the like the association between stimulus and the response, because there are different other types of learning where we won't be finding any association between stimulus and response. Look at the mainly imitation, just observing the others' behavior and just following that. All those, so there we won't be able to clearly, strictly get the stimulus response association. The pairing is not taking place, but still the behavior is there. So they found out that there is something known as the desirableness of the outcome. So in the beginning, it was Thorndike. So he came up with the view that if the behavior yields a desirable outcome, then there is a high chance that we will be continuing that behavior. And the undesirable behavior, or like if the outcome is something undesirable, there is a high chance that the frequency of that behavior will be reduced. Okay, so mainly he was trying to get that through different experiments, and to explain that Thorndike came up with the different laws. We'll be discussing that was at a later period. But what happened is that after Thorndike, B.F. Skinner, he just gave more structured or scientific like application to what Thorndike told. So he clearly designed an experimental setup which is known as Skinner box, and then he conducted the experiment there both. So I'm sure that you are familiar with both those two experiments, right? The rat pressing the lever and giving electric shock to the rat. Through those two experiments, so he found out that the learning can be in operant way as well. Okay, so the learning can be in operant way as well, and it is the favorableness or the desirableness of the reward. That is what leads you the repetition or the increase in that behavior. So that's what the Skinner was saying. So what he found is that there is a behavior and the consequence for that. Then effect of that consequence will be like looking at whether you will be continuing that weak behavior or whether you will be the number increase in decrease. So if you're looking at the bottom on the section, so there is a comparison that is happening between the processes what are the key processes in learning, that is acquisition, extinction, stimulus discrimination, and stimulus generalization. and how that two things are happening in operant conditioning and classical conditioning. So in acquisition, so what happens is that always conditioned stimulus and conditioned response, unconditioned stimulus are paired, and gradually we will be getting the unconditioned response. So what happens is that responding gradually increases because of the reinforcement, possibly through shaping. Because so what happens is that here conditioning is like conditioning, or the frequency of the behavior is happening just because of the responses that we are getting. So that is what the acquisition is all about. Extinction means, so what happens is that gradually slows or stops the reinforcement. So when we are stopping the reinforcement, so here only in operant conditioning we are using the term reinforcement, which means the consequence of the behavior. Okay, so that is known as word the reinforcement. So reinforcement can be different types, so we will be coming to that. Based on the reinforcement, so if you are stopping the reinforcement, what is that? There is a chance that that behavior also will be getting stopped. Okay, then stimulus generalization. So when it comes to stimulus generalization, means what is stimulus generalization? That means, so just remember the case of little Albert. So how he was like conditioned to fear white dog or white mouses, but he developed a fear towards all kind of white, fluffy, like puffy stuff, even the inanimate the stuffs as well. So that is what the stimulus generalization. An example that we can come. The same way, responding increases in the presence of new stimuli that resembles the original discriminative stimulus. So, like if the stimulus is something similar to the previous one, so what will happen is we will be able to elicit the same kind of responses for the other stimulus. That is what stimulus generalization. So it is generalizing. Discrimination means again, so we will be able to clearly see the differences between each stimulus. So that's what, so that a comparison that you can keep in mind, how both the two terms are different. So when it comes to the classical conditioning, one thing that you need to remember is that there is a reinforcement. That means that reinforcement can be aid, and that reinforcer is the one that changes the behavior. Okay, that is what is this reinforcement? This will be the consequence of the stimulus or consequences or the responses that you're getting. Okay, there can be primary reinforcement can be there, secondary reinforcement can be there, all that. So even this reinforcement can be of two types, that is positive, and the reinforcer can be of negative. Okay, so what do you mean by this positive and negative reinforcement? Any idea? Or what do you mean by this? The other side, one is reinforcement means we are encouraging or providing something or adding something. That is what reinforcement. That means, so you are giving something or you are adding something. That is the reinforcement. And there can be two, positive and negative. So we are coming to that. The other side, negative, when we are adding means reinforcement. If we are taking back something, what is that? That is punishment. Again, so again this punishment means, again it can be adding or withdrawal. Even reinforcement also can be something adding or withdrawal. Okay, so we will discuss that in detail. So what is this positive reinforcement, or what is this negative reinforcement, or what is this punishment, and what is this in positive punishment itself, what is this positive and negative. So keep these two things in mind. Okay, positive, even like positive means we are adding something, and negative means we are removing something, both in the case of what, reinforcement and punishment. Okay, positive means adding something, negative means removing something. So that will give you a better clarity. Now, okay, so what is this positive reinforcement? Okay, I think this picture will give you like a detailed understanding. That is, you are teaching them the child to be polite. So what happens is that when the child is being polite, you give him a toffee. So that is the positive reinforcer. The toffee is the positive reinforcer, and he learns that. So what happens is that so he will be that behavior will be strengthened, and even when he goes to school or any other situations, he learns to be polite. That is similar generalization is coming there, and here that is what we call it as positive reinforcement. That means you are a positive reinforcer is any stimulus that when presented after a response strengthen the responses. Okay, which is the response here? That is being polite. So that behavior is strengthened as a result of the positive reinforcer. That means that is giving a toffee. Okay, positive reinforcer is adding something to increase certain things, increase the other responses. That is what positive reinforcer. Okay, so now what is this negative reinforcer? Okay, negative reinforcer means adding something, increasing a behavior by stopping or reducing negative stimulus. Okay, so here take the case of painkiller. You are taking painkiller. Okay, that means so you have a terrible headache or like you have terrible pain. So what happens is that you are taking the painkiller, that is the negative reinforcer, and as a result of that, what happens? So you will be your pain will be removed. So what happens is that so whenever you have a pain or something, so you learn the behavior of taking painkillers or like taking the particular medicine. Okay, so what happens other cases when you have a headache, so you apply like any Vicks or like amlodipine or that or any ointment, so the headache will be over. So whenever you have a headache, so what happens, so applying those ointment or Vicks, so that behavior increases. So what happens is that so in order to reduce, so you are adding something, you are taking something, and so that that behavior increases because why when you are taking something, the negative like aversive stimulus is getting reduced, and this kind of reinforcement is known as what? Here the behavior which is increased is taking medicine or applying Vicks, okay, or taking painkiller. That behavior is increased because when you are taking that, that reduces the aversive stimulus, which is that pain. Okay, so this is negative reinforcement. Then they have the other two. Here you have two examples. The other is punishment. Punishment is what you are taking back something, or like which it will be reinforcement will be mainly looking at increasing the behavior, and punishment will be mainly at looking at decreasing the behavior. Okay, punishment decreases the behavior, reinforcement increases the behavior. Positive means adding something, negative means what? Can you tell me? Negative means removing
Taking
something.
some.
Yeah, reducing or removing something. Okay, so now the combination. So when we are looking at positive punishment means, so what? You are adding, positive means adding, punishment means the intention is to reduce the behavior. So adding something to reduce the behavior, it is simple. So when someone is doing something wrong, so what happens is that if the father is shouting, or if they are giving them as like a small beating, that means like that pain, beating pain is an unpleasant stimulus, or shouting is an unpleasant stimulus adding. So what happens? The child will be like, no, they will be. stopping that behavior. That means if the child is, like for example, if they are not doing their homework, okay, they are not doing the homework, so the teacher gives you impositions, okay, 10 times imposition. So that means adding something. That aversive stimulus, aversive, that is they need to write it 10 times the entire the chapter. Okay, that is adding something, and which is so like why they are adding, to reduce the behavior of not doing homework. Okay, so that is known as positive punishment. Okay, when it comes to negative punishment means withdrawing something. Negative means withdraw something or reduce something so that the behavior also will be reducing. For example, you haven't done the homework, so you haven't performed well in your exam, so your parents are saying that your pocket money is cut or your TV time is cut. So no more subscription to entertainment channels. That means they are reducing certain things, withdrawing certain stimuluses to reduce the behavior which was like you did not perform well. So that means poor performance in exams. To reduce that behavior, they are reducing the other side, they are reducing the stimulus, which is something like not giving you access to the gaming password or net entertainment, the channels, all that. So always keep that in mind. These are four types of reinforcement. Four types. That is reinforcement two types, punishment two type. So reinforcement is always intended to increase the behavior, while punishment is aiming to reduce the behavior. And when we say the positive means we are adding something, and negative means we are removing something. And based on this, all this we have a combination, right? For combination that is coming something like this. We have positive reinforcement, so we have a positive punishment, we have negative reinforcement, and we have negative punishment. So this like chart or this, and this chart you can keep in mind. And always remember that there are always, if you are looking at any of the previous year question paper, there will be one or two questions from this area. That is mainly reinforcement. It is either asked to identify the reinforcement or what kind of reinforcement is, or they'll be telling like whether they will be making incorrect statements. That means they will be stating that positive reinforcement is reducing like a certain behavior. So they will be giving, instead of the proper and conceptual explanation, they will give you wrong explanation and ask you to complete identify what is the correct one. Okay, so again, so that is regarding to the reinforcement. Okay, punishment. So now when this reinforcement are reduced, that also has a certain impact on the learning process. That is, whether you are giving this reinforcement continuously, or whether you are, that means for every behavior, for every completion of the task or expected task, are you giving reinforcement, or are you giving certain the reinforcement on certain time intervals, or are you giving reinforcement like giving a fixed number of reinforcement together, or are you giving like the number of reinforcement is totally varying, all that. So all those also can have an impact on the learning process, and that is known as what, schedules of reinforcement. That means the particular pattern of reinforcement that you are adopting over a time in a learning process. Okay, that is known as what, the schedules of reinforcement. So it can be based on like for, it can be like there are two aspects that we are looking at. One is the interval, that is after a particular time interval, are we giving the reinforcement after a particular time of interval, or after are we giving the reinforcement after a particular number of responses completed. That means, so in the first the case, the time is the key factor. So we are not counting the responses, but in the second, we are counting the responses and the time is not a factor there. Okay, so based on that, we have different combination. The first one is fixed interval. Okay, fixed interval is mainly the reinforcer is given for the first response that occurs after a fixed time interval has elapsed. That means, so for every so you will be you are starting a job, after 30 days you will be getting your salary. That means every 30th day you will be getting your salary. That means only after the 30th days you will be getting that. That means here the time is fixed. Okay, the time interval is fixed. Salary after 30 days. Okay, so now that is one type of schedules of reinforcement. The other type of schedule reinforcement is variable interval. Okay, that means so the reinforcer is given the responses or the reward after a varying time of interval, or like for a varying time. For example, it can be the first day itself you can get the salary, or we can get like after 3 days. And it is that means when you get the salary, you're totally the when you will get your salary, it will be totally unpredictable for you. That means for this month you will be getting on like the first day itself. So when you're joining itself, you will get for the next month you may get only after 3 days, after the 1 month, like the 1 month period is completed. Then you may get only like even before the next month the begins, you may get the next month salary. If that is the case, we will call it as variable interval. That means the time between each the salary period is totally varying. In the other case, the first fixed interval means the time gap between each salary is fixed, that is 30 days. Now, the other one is ratio schedules. So there also we have certain types, that is fixed ratio again. So fixed ratio means, so what happens is that, so the reinforcer is given after a fixed number of desired responses. Okay, that means, so when you are if you are completing the 10, there are, consider that there are 100 tasks. So you will be getting the reinforcement when you complete each the 10th task. Okay, that means the 10th task you will get the first reinforcement, then the second reinforcement you will be getting on the 20th, third on the 30th. So fixed, that means every when you complete 10th task, then you will get to the every 10th task you will get to the reinforcement. So that is when you get, so that is the reinforcement is fixed. Okay, and the rat is getting the fixed. So the time that you're taking to complete every 10, the first 10 and the second term may not be the same, or the third term may not be the same. But only when you are completing the 10th task, you will get the reward. So if you are following that, that is known as what? The fixed ratio. Then we have something known as variable ratio. That is where, so what happens is that, so you will be finding that, so the for the first one, the you may give the behavior, like the reinforcement for the first behavior itself. Then second you may give, then for the 10th you may give, then for the 30th you may give. So there is no the fixed the ratio. That means the again it is becoming totally unpredictable. So after completion of each responses, you will be getting reward. You are not sure. So what happens is that always there is a anticipation for reward will be there. In a variable ratio, there will be an anticipation for reward always will be there. So again, that can have some impact on the performance. The constant anticipation that can decrease, or like other cases it can increase. So among all these, which one will be the? So can you just? I'm just giving you few examples here. Okay, I will come back to that. So these are the four types. Okay, this picture gives you how quickly or how these responses are acquired. Okay, so these responses are acquired. For example, fixed ratio, fixed like no like variable ratio, fixed interval, and variable interval. And so it says that so if it is a ratio that is fixed ratio, lower resistance to exist like an extinction. That means so extinction can happen quickly, okay, and then a short period after like always there will be like a short uh, response period will be there. The higher ratio like so we will be having higher rates of responses in the fixed ratio level. When it comes to variable ratio, so higher resistance to extinction, that we will be finding that because the learning will be more and there will be there won't be much extinction that is happening, then this learning process is what high speedy and the rate higher, and so there will be any time gap between like each response or anything. So what happens is that higher ratios are generated and higher response rate. So more responses you'll be finding here. So what happens is that when it comes to a fixed interval, so what happens again, lower resistance to existing, like extinction. So lower resistance to extinction, so that we'll be finding there. Then what happens is that so like when you get the first reinforcement, so the number of frequencies will be a number of responses will be higher. Then when it comes to like the middle, so it may take more time, and then when you are nearing to the next one, that is like so for example the time that you're taking to first response and between the time that you're taking to reach first and third, and then from third to fifth, and fifth to eight, and eight to 10. So consider that we are dividing them into these smaller like section. So what happens is that 1 to 3 you will be reaching quickly. Then 3 to 5 you will be taking more time. Then again 5 to 8 you may take again more time to reach that, but 8 to 10 again you will be getting, you will be those two the three performance will be very quick because you feel that you will be getting the reward, because you know that after the 10th completion you will be getting the reward again after 10th. So because of that reward, two like behaviors can no like the trials can be quickly, then again it will be like slowing down. So that is how, if you're looking at the third like in the picture there, so that curves that you'll be finding it there. And when it comes to variable interval, so what happens is that there is again a resistance, high resistance to extinction, and the learning process is slow but steady rate without any pause. A steady learning that we will be finding in variable intervals, and shorter intervals and greater and we will be having higher rates of like responses. So that is the general like differences that we will be finding with all the four. What are so now again, so we can look at from these four which one will be the most effective one. Okay, so that you can look into that. Okay, then other than so these two behaviors, that is these two theories, that is classical and operant conditioning, we are mainly focusing on learning theories and its behavioral part and trying to explain the association. But they found out that so it is not just the association between like, so there is something else also plays a major role in learning process. All the learning that that are taking place can be explained by this uh, pairing or association. So there is a cognitive process involved in that learning, and all these two theories are not focusing on those cognitive aspects. So in order to explain that cognitive aspects, we have few cognitive theories of learning. They are latent learning theory by Edward Tolman, and we have insight learning by Kohler, and we have learned helplessness, the concept and everything by Martin Seligman. Okay, so what is this Tolman and his experiments? So what he have done is that he created a maze, Okay, and there is a starting box and there will be a goal box. So what they need to do is the rat should reach from the starting box, and through that maze it should reach to the goal box. And okay, so that is the task. That was the experiment. So for that, so they had like he had three types of experimental conditions or three groups of rats. Okay, the first group, which is the green group. So I'm just taking it as here it as like if you're looking at this uh, the graph. So I'm just considering it as green one. Okay, the first two. So or also take the first group A, that the pink one or the purple one. Okay, so that means whenever that rat is, or like that the rat is reaching the goal box, they will be getting the reward. That means every completion of the task, they are getting the reward. Okay, that is the first group. So that means he will be placing the rat in that box on our starting box, then completing this task through this maze. The rat should, whenever the rat reaches the goal box, they will be getting a reward. Okay, for each completion, they are getting a reward. Okay, the second group was that, so which is a B group. That means they are not getting any reward. So the rat is doing it. So rat will be placed in the starting box. They will be reaching the goal box. Again, they will be placed back in the starting box, and they will be doing it, and they are not getting any reward. Okay, and so then the third, so altogether 20 trial were there. So the first the 20 trial for the first group is done. Then the second the 20 trial for the second group without reward, it is done. So now he had a third group of rat. So in that, so what he did is that for the first 20, like in that 20 trials, for the first 10 trials, he did not give any rewards. Okay. And from the 11th trial onwards, so what happened is that he started to give reward. Okay. So now, so that was the experiment. So what is the outcome of that experiment, or how did that learning happen? All that, what is that he is trying to explain? So we will be doing it now. So now look at this, the third section, that is B section of the graph. Okay. So as per the previous two theories, what happens is that learning is purely the association between stimulus and response. That means only then the learning should happen. Okay, so now look at the so here the rat with group A, that is the purple link, is only having that pairing. That is, they are getting reward for every completion of the task. Okay, but if we are looking at the other two, that means, so look at the other two. So here, so what happens is that they have clearly counted the number of errors. Okay, so what happened is that, so what they have found is that if the number of trials or the number of trials are increasing, so what happens is that if with regard to group A, so the errors that they are making, the rat was making moving to other side, all that is counted as errors. That errors were reducing. So in the first group, A group, it was somewhere around 9, or like average consider that 9, like 9 point something. And in the 11th trial, so it was somewhere around 3 point something. The purple one. That means due to association. So by classical conditioning or open conditioning, through the association, the number of errors reduced. Okay. So now look at the other two situations where they haven't received any reward. That means there is no association, but still they found that there is a number of reduction in the errors. For example, in the first condition, that is group C, where first 10 trials they haven't received any response, and then they haven't received any reward, but after from the 11th onwards they received. For that group as well, the beginning in the trial was like the error was somewhere around 10, and then that got reduced to 6, or like 5 point something. In the group C, which group B, which did not had any reinforcement throughout the series. In that case, also their errors also got reduced from 9 point something to like 6 point something or 7. That means even in those two other cases, even without reward, there is a decrease in errors. That which means that there is a learning that is taking place. Okay. The other side, that is again, so when the moment that when you are introducing that pairing or giving reward, the C has a huge drop in the number of errors. That is okay. But what they are trying to do is that even without pairing, there is a learning that is happening. So what accounts for that learning? So that was the trigger point. So that is where the Tolman and his colleagues and the experimenters they say that it is the cognitive processes that is happening within the organism that is responsible for that learning process. It is not the reward, but the reward always plays a role, but cognitive process also has a certain important role in understanding the or explaining the learning. So that is what, so that is something intent or latent or hidden in that. So that is why it is known as what? His theory is known as latent learning theories. Okay. So he was mainly focusing on that cognitive mental representation or like, so what they were doing is that by completing each task, they are the rat is able to create a mental picture of the maze, and that is known as that is helping him in the process. Okay, so that is the first one is the latent, the learning. Then the next one is inside learning. Okay, so inside learning, we have something known as what? So I'm sure that you are familiar with the example of Cochlear and the chimpanzee named Sultan, right? His experiments, that is stick and the banana experiment and boxes and banana experiment. So he places the chimpanzee in the cage, and he kept a bunch of banana on the roof. And he the first experiment, so he placed three sticks there of different size and length. So with the chimpanzee was taking one stick and trying to reach the banana, and they were trying to jump and reach the banana. No, it was not reaching. Finally, it was trying with all the sticks and everything. So finally, it was standing somewhere there, and then all of a sudden, the chimpanzee came. They took one stick. They tried to connect that with the other stick, and then easily he could reach the banana and he could get the banana. So that was that moment is known as what aha moment or like. So then, so from there, so that is what. So they will be doing all kind of trial and error methods or experimentation. Then there will be something known as like aha moment in problem solving, and then all of a sudden we'll be learning that or getting that knowledge. Then he continued the same experiment with the three boxes as well. So there also finally the chimpanzee was able to place one box over the other and climb on that and properly balance it and get the banana. So these two experiments shows that so what there is it is not any association or trial and it is together with the trial and error. There is some moment in their life they are totally clueless, and then they are getting some kind of insight or some revelations, and then they are going all of a sudden they are trying to join or place one box over other and then get that. So and this type of learning or like happens mainly in terms of problem solving, and that is known as what we call it as insight learning. Then we had the third one, which is known as learned helplessness concept, which was mainly proposed by the Seligman and the Stephen. Okay, so what happens is that so again, so like following the path of Skinner, Seligman was doing many researches on uh, mainly the dog, the animals, or with the application of the classical conditioning and the operant conditioning principles. So what he found was that he created a cage, and at one side it was uh, the floor was giving certain kinds of shock. The other side there was no shock. So what happens is that, so whenever the dog hears a certain sound, so what happens, and all of a sudden the shock will be there, then the dog would jump over the small fence there to the other side, and where they won't be able to the dog won't be getting any shock. So that experiment he continued, so that he was totally torn to that sound and all that. So later, what happened is that even with and in another one situation, so what happened is that there will be torn and there will be electric shock, but there is no other side. The dog won't be able to move to the other side. Okay, that means there is only one side and that entire platform is getting shocked. And so what all the way that the dog is trying to remove that aversive stimulus, that is shock, it is not possible. So finally what happens is that the dog won't be, so dog won't be making any effort to come out, or effort. Otherwise in the beginning, the dog will be running around the cage or like trying to jump, all that. But after few exposure, the dog will be just waiting for its destiny, something like to others to stop it or something like that way. There won't be any responses from the dog. Then again, so what happened is that, so he placed the dog in the previous condition, so where to at one side there will be shock and the other side there won't be shock. And then so when the dog is getting shocked, so what happened is that, so the dog could easily jump to the other side and avoid shock, but what happens is that it's not doing any effort. That means, so because of the previous learning, so what happened is that the dog became totally helpless and is not making any effort to avoid that. So those concepts, so why is it, all those gave new insight to the learning theories, and this clearly told that there is something known as what the cognitive aspects and the other thought processes that are happening within the organism has certain impact on the learning process. Okay, so do you have any questions regarding any of these? So now we have just completed a few the key theories in the one or two more. So do you have any doubt regarding any of these theories that we have just discussed? Because all these are important, so you can get the details there in the textbook, and then you need to read that. So do you have, if you have anything, you can state in the chat, or if you do not have, then also you can give it in the chat. Okay. So in that case, what I'm giving you, I'm just giving you now, it is like 11:18. So I'm just giving you a 5-minute break. So just have a glass of water, or just walk around and then come back after 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you. When you're back, please give your comment in the chat box so that I am aware that you are back. Okay, so we had a quick look at one side, or like a few theories in the learning. Then we have few more. That is mainly the observational learning theory. I'm sure that you're aware with the Bob experiment, right? Am I right? So you're aware and you know what was that Bob experiment, right? Bob experiment. So do you remember that? If you remember, you can give that in the chat box. The Bob experiment. Okay, so if not, then I shall just give you a quick summary of that. So Bob experiment was mainly an experiment which was trying to understand the role of observational learning, and Bandura and the team. So they are the one who was considered as the pioneers in observational learning. So what they have done is that so they kept like few children who are the participants of that experiment in a room, and in that room so there was two big screens. So there they were like shown, or like they were watching certain videos. Okay, so where the video was mainly, the content of the video was something like this. There was something like the doll, a big bobo doll, and certain adults were behaving, like interacting with that like bobo doll. Some were just kicking the ball, or some were just hitting that the doll. So that was the video. Okay, after that, so what happened is that each child were placed in the next the experimental laboratory room. So where they a bobo doll, a doll similar like the one that they saw in the video, that were placed there, and there was a different other like the equipments also were available in the laboratory. Okay, and the experimenters were clearly observing how the child is behaving to the bobo doll. Okay, so the first group was the first few children who were considered as the experimental group. So they were watching this video in the restroom and in the visiting room, and then when they got into the lab, so they were hitting the Bobo doll. They were like showing more aggressive behavior towards the Bobo doll, and even in the the form of aggression or that was shown in the video was made mild, but when it comes to the expression of the children, so what they have noticed that even they were hitting like they were hitting the board, or they were kicking it. Even some of them were taking the equipments which are available to them in that lab, even taking a gun or like hammer and hitting it or beating it. All those behaviors, the children were showing all those behaviors which were not even in the video. Okay, that was the first. Then, so the second group, which they did not watch that while they were sitting in the waiting room, they were just quiet waiting there, and then they were given the time to play with the Bobo road and the experimental lab. So there they were doing some kind of like the normal play which they used to do with the Bobo doll or like the dolls. Okay, there was no such kind of aggressive behavior which the experimental group showed. So from that, they found out, understand that the children are like learning certain behavior through observation. So observation learning means the acquisition of new form of behavior, information, or concepts through exposure to others and the consequences they experience. Okay, it can be just observing others, and as a result of which the consequence, and then you may be observing something, and you may be observing the rewards they are getting for their behavior, that as well help you in your learning process. And that learning is known as what? The observational learning. Okay. So observational learning. So look at this, like here, the mother is using that makeup, then the child is also coming. Look at the previous one with the same, like the monk, the the other cat is also mimicking the human behavior. All those are the examples of observational learning. Okay, mimicking certain things. So in order to this observation learnings to happen, there are four processes that you need to remember. Okay, so clearly remember what are the four processes and the sequence of that processes. Okay, first one is attention. That means you need to clearly the extent to which we focus on others' behavior. That means how accurately and precisely we have watched or viewed other person's behavior. That is the first process in the observational learning. The second process is retention. That means our ability to retain a representation of others' behavior in our memory. That means the behavior that we have observed, how we may have observed that behavior in someone else, and how our capacity to retain that behavior, that observed like information from our memory at a particular time. So that is known as what? The retention. So retention capacity is the second quality. Then the third quality is the production process. That means our ability to act on this memory representation. So first is you focus, you observe, then at a given time you recalled it or you retrieve it. Then do you think that you have the capacity to act on this? Or do you think that, so for example, so you do it, your friend is getting a like becoming a class topper and getting a gold medal, and you also want to study well. So do you think that, and you also know that if you're studying well, you also will get a medal and or recognition and acceptance from others. But do you think that they have the capacity to do that? Or do you think that you are able to, you have the potential to do that? That is the production process. That is, or are you willing to do that? Or that is our ability to act on this memory representation. So that is the production process. So that is the third phase. Then okay, so you feel that okay, you have the intellectual capacity and you are able to do that. Okay, I'm capable to do that. Then finally, even if you're capable, you won't commit, you won't do it. But again, the usefulness of that information or acquired behavior. Do you think that by doing that, what you will get is something good? Or you will, yeah, I get certain recognition or acceptance or like the medal or like more, I'll be considered as something like great. So that is the usefulness of that behavior. All these four like principles together, that is attention, retention, production, process, and motivation. All these three, oh no, sorry, four things together is required for a new learnings to happen in observational learning. Okay, so what are the processes involved in? So remember the sequence as well. So there are multiple times there was questions on this because they will be clearly placing something like retention, production process, motivation, and attention, or like motivation process, retention, attention, and like motivation or production process. So they will be restructuring the sequence and be asking you to identify the correct sequence. Okay, so there were questions, multiple questions were on that. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so now I'm just trying to conclude the learning section. Okay, so if you are looking at the learning theories, so the entire theories can be classified into Hilgard and Bauer. They classify this learning theories into two. One section they call it as like all the theories are coming there. That is behaviorist theories, then Thorndike's theories, then Pavlov's classical conditioning theories, then Skinner's theories, Hall theories, like then contingency theories, all that comes there into the first section. The other side, they have placing it as something like cognitive theories. One is purely behavioristic, the other is cognitive theories, Gestalt. Then Tolman's like theories, all that there, the cognitive. And then they place that there are few theories which are mainly which has both the components. Okay, that is cognitive aspects are there, behaviorist aspects are there. That is Freud, psychodynamics, functionalism, then mathematical learning theory, information processing models. All that they say that both are there. So this is the one type of classification that Hilgard and Bauer was two learning theory classification. Okay, the same way, so we have one more classification that is McDonald six category of learning theories. So here what he's trying to classify the learning theories as like recapitalization. That theory is mainly known as Hulk theory. So I'll be like that is Hulk drive reduction theory. Okay, so we'll be coming to that. Then the second theory is known as Thorndike connectionism. So again, so we'll be discussing that. Then pragmatism by Davy. So then Gestalt or the field theory by like Ogden and Lewis. Then we have the dynamics psychology by psychodynamic approach, all that by Freud, and then functionalism by Jude. Sorry. All these are the different classifications when they are trying to look at overall classify this. So, but these classifications are not that much important, but I have seen once there was a question on like, so who came up with this classification or like in that way, they had like so a few questions. That is why I just thought of mentioning those two here. Then, so what is this? So we'll be discussing what is this Edward Thorndike theory, and so we'll be discussing a little more on Hulk theory. Okay. Okay, so Thorndike theory, so he was mainly focusing on again, so what he was trying to say that, so this theory was in between a state between classical conditioning and operant conditioning, and it is the first form of, we can call it as operant conditioning. So he was telling that there is a trial and error phase. Okay, all these habits or behaviors are formed through these trial and error processes. And always there is a SR framework of behavior, that is stimulus response pairing that is happening. And how that pairing is happening is mainly based on the three principles or three theories that he came up with. One is the law of effect. The law of effect means the responses to a situation which are followed by a rewarding state of affair will be strengthened and become habitual responses to that situation. That means law of effect means that if the reward of certain behavior is something positive or something favorable, so what happens is that so that will strengthen the responses, and so as a result of that favorable reward, so we will be continuing that behavior. That behavior will get strengthened. Okay, if the outcome of the behavior is something favorable, so the behavior will be getting strengthened. So that is what law of effect says. Okay, the law is law of readiness. Law of readiness means a series of responses can be chained together to satisfy some goal, which will result in annoyance and if blocked. So what happens is that, so how you will be performing certain things. So that, when we are looking at certain uh, behaviors can be connected, joined together for when it comes to shaping or any other thing. So multiple behaviors will be joined together. Okay, so then they can be clearly used to get some outcome behavior. And if that is blocked, then what can happen is that there can be some behavioral changes or the behavior can be like, it can clearly affect the learning process. Let me check whether I can give you much more simple explanation for that law of readiness. 1 second. Uh, okay, again, so what happens is that, so yeah, law of readiness is telling that together with the first part, which is the law of exercise, the organism should be ready to learn. So you have your willingness to learn. So that is also a key component there. Okay, that is your readiness to learn that behavior or readiness to. So that is the like also plays a key important role that comes there. So that is what I call it as laws of readiness. When it comes to law of exercise, so what happens is that connection becomes strengthened with practice and weakened with when practice is discontinued. Exercise means if you are practicing trial and error means if you are continuously doing that, then it will be getting strengthened. If you are once you are doing it and then we are not, if you are not continuing not doing it means that behavior won't be. So that means if connection is like he says that Thorndike says that there are the behavior or the learning is happening because there is a connection that is happening between stimulus and responses, and that pairing is happening, and that pairing is happening based on three laws or three principles. The first law is if the behavior or the outcome of that behavior is something favorable or desirable, then that behavior will become more strengthened. That is law of effect. And then if you are ready to learn, then there is a chance that so you will be learning that processes very quickly. So that is the law of readiness. Then the law of exercise, that means this connection will become more strengthened if you are practicing it or if you are repeating it. So that is what law of exercise. So that is what the connectionism theory by Thorndike says. Okay, that is what the connectionism theory. Then the second one is the drive reduction theory by Hull. Okay, so what he says that so the physiological state, so it is the same like the old uh, drive reduction theory, and they are applying that in here in the learning process or learning environment in the learning environment. So here what they're trying to say, there is a homeostasis that is, and then what happens is that as a result of change in that the need or arise, that is a physiological need arises. It can be for food or behavior or like water or anything, any physiological change, and as a result of that need certain drives, because you need to come fill that or like satisfy that need. So that need become a drive, a hunger or thirst. So there is a drive. So then what happens, so then we try to, so when there is a drive, so what happens? So the body is not in a homeostasis or in an equilibrium state. So what happens? We need to maintain that homeostasis or internal equilibrium. So in order to do that, we will be trying to reduce that drive. How you will be reducing this, the how you will be reduce the drive? You'll be reducing the drive by satisfying the or satisfying the need or completing the. So in order to do that, so you will be engaging in certain behavior that is will be like eating or drinking or having food, all that. So that will become, so what happens is that you indirectly you learn that habit. So that is what this is. For example, so they have you have a homeostasis, that means as a result of the need so all of a sudden and you lack that homeostasis, then the need comes, then you have a drive comes there, then you try to complete a certain task to fill or like to maintain the homeostasis, because that is the state. So when you're doing that, as a result of this process itself, you learn certain things. So that is what they are stating it there. And this process, that is maintaining the homeostasis, can become a reinforcement for you to continue that behavior. So that is what Hulk is like Clark Hulk, sorry, not Hulk, sorry, Hulk is saying. Okay, so these are the major theories of learning and its explanations, all that. So do you have anything, do you have any doubt regarding any of these learning section or any of those? So if you have any doubt, you can say that you have doubt. If you do not have any doubt, then you can say that no. Okay, is it clear? If it is clear, just type it out there. Okay, so if that is the case, just giving you a few questions. Okay, 1 second. Just giving you a few questions. Okay, you can try to get answers for that. So you can view it, right? So which can be the answer? So what might be the answer? Any idea? For this, what might be the answer? The first one, for this, what might be the answer? You can give that in the chat box. 1 second, and let me get the chat. So let me see your responses because I'm not able to see the chart with the other one. Okay, so you haven't responded there. So what you should assume? So the answer is 3. Okay, pulse theory is the answer. Then the second one you have the second one. Which of the following are correct for learning? They have multiple options there. So if you know the answer, then you can type it out, or you can. Okay. Let me see what is the response that I have here. X. You are stating it as 2. Okay. So the correct response here is 2. That is the first condition, second condition, and third condition are correct in the case of latent learning. 2 is the answer for the second question. Okay. So from the here, so we are moving to the next section. That is the key major part. That is the memory part. Okay. So in memory, there are a lot of sessions are there. There are a lot of content are there, but we'll be quickly moving to just I'll give you a summary of the entire session. Okay. So first is the memory process. What is this memory, or what is the process that is involved in memory? So that is known as what? There is a memory is the storage and retrieval of what have been learned or experienced. That means there are 3 processes that are happening there. One is the storage, one is the retrieval, and one is first is the encoding, storage, retrieval. Okay, so that means you have a information, so you need to code that into a form which can be which the nervous system can be stored. That process is known as coding, same like the computer. Then we have the storage process where you will be storing. So the coded information should be stored, and the storage happens at different places. That is, it can be at sensory stage, or it can be at short-term stage, or it can be at the long-term stage. So 3 types of storages we have. Then the retrieval. So at a later stage, when it is required, so we need to retrieve the information from the long-term and use it. So that is the retrieval capacity. All these 3 together forms what we call it as memory. And sensory memory is the memory where the memory that is happening at the sensory level. That means it is very short, and it is there for only a very brief like the seconds. And so from there and all of a sudden those informations or the information will be moving from the sensory memory, and new information will be coming there. The storage capacity of the sensory memory is very limited, and there the information will be stored only for the shorter period of time. Then we have the the long-term memory. Okay, so okay, so then we have the short-term memory, so where the information will be stored for a shorter period of time. Okay, information will be stored for a shorter period of time. Again, this stored again. So the short-term memory is divided into different sections, and the information which are there in the short-term memory. So we will be doing more rehearsal. That means from sensory memory, the information will be moved to short-term memory through the process of attention. Okay, and from short-term memory, the information will be moved to the long-term memory through the process of like maintenance rehearsal. That means we will be rehearsing it, or like repeatedly will be reminding, thinking about that. Due to that process, we will be like the information will be moved to the long-term memory. And short-term memory is also the capacity is limited, and so there are different the areas, mainly, not the areas, the different the levels are there, the capacity is limited. Then the information that can be processed at the short-term level is limited. Then we have the final one, the long-term memory. So where the long-term memory, it is unlimited and the capacity is unlimited. A lot of information can be processed, and all those are the features of long-term memory. Okay, so now we will be looking into all these. This is the quick summary and all these in details. Okay, how this process is happening, what are the different the capacity theories that are explaining. Okay, so here if you're looking at the sensory memory, the capacity is something very very limited. It will be waiting for only a fraction of a second, and then you'll like if the information is not attended, then you will be losing that, the decay will be happening there. If the information is attended, then it will be moving to the short-term memory, and maximum of like 7 items held, 7 plus or minus 2. So that is the sensory, like the capacity. So we will be having that in the short-term memory, and it will be lasting there for almost like 20 seconds. And again, depending upon the different senses, that capacity is that the duration is also varying. Okay, then you can check out who was the one who came up with the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. So can you just comment that who was the one who came up with the concept, that concept? Okay, then you can comment in the chat box that. Then we have the short long-term memory, which is what we have, it is a permanent memory, and the information is like we don't have any count on how much information we will be able to store in uh, long-term memory. And there are different theoretical explanations to explain each these types of memory, and they explain the process of information moving from one state to the other. Okay, so we'll be discussing that in detail. Some of them are mainly on, we'll be focusing on the semantic part. Some of them will be mainly focusing, that is semantic means meaning part. Some of them will be focusing on the process part, all that. Okay, so in that, the first one is the sensory memory. So we are more sure, right? So the senses receive the information, and if we are attending that, then those information will be moved to the second the stage, that is the short-term memory. Okay, so we'll be discussing something about short-term memory right now. Short-term memory is how the information is processed or in the short-term memory. So Crick and Lockhart, they came up with the information processing that is happening at short-term memory. Okay, levels of, they call it as levels of like processing theory. So what they have done is that they clearly told us that there are three kinds of processing that is happening regarding the information at where at the short-term memory. So one is the first level, the periphery level. The first level is the periphery level where the information processing will be happening at a very shallow processing. So what do you mean by this shallow processing? That means, so when you hear something, so what you will be looking at, so you'll be looking at the structure or the physical structure of the stimulus. What is it? What kind of stimulus is it? Only all those information that you will be looking at. Okay, so you won't be going in detail about anything more. Just the structure will be, so even you won't understand, like you won't be looking at the meaning or anything, just the structure of the stimulus or the information you will be looking. Then what happens is that then the next level of processing that is happening at is an intermediate level of processing where you will be looking at phonemic like encoding. That means so you will, yeah, this word is sounding like this, or this word is sounding like this. So you will be looking at that phonemic coding part. First is just the structure. Okay, so A, so that structure you will be A, B structure, C structure. Okay, or like A, like H, A, S, or like all those structures you will be. Then you will be looking at the phonemic, whether it is like the first means the capital or small or those the structure. Like the second is phonemic means rhythm or weight or like any of those components you will be looking at. That is the like intermediate level. Then you have the third stage, which is known as the deep processing. That means there you will be looking at the meaning of the word. Okay, so you will be looking, okay, so when you say has, okay, first you will be looking at whether it is capital letter or small letter, then has, okay, so that rhythm of that pronunciation or that you will be looking at. Then so has means what? Okay, that means, yeah, then how it is different from how or any other word. So you'll be looking at the deep processing that is known as semantic coding. So there are, based on the levels of processing that is happening, the information will be moving from one stage to other. That is what he called it as based, that is what the theory of levels of processing is mainly looking at. Okay, levels of processing. And again, so if the information is fully processed at a structural level, so you won't be able to recall that info, like retrieve that info, most of the information you will be losing that. If phonemic like encoding is happening, so what happens is that more information you will be able to retrieve. But if the coding is happening, that means when you are converting like the information that is sensory stimulus into a coded neural form, if you are looking at the phonemic level, that means more you are looking at the meaning, connections, all that, then there is a high chance that more information like you will be able to recall. Recognition or will be more higher than the structural or any other. So that means if the retention needs to be happen, so what happens is for the most number of retention, so what we need to have is the coding should happen at a semantic level rather than a structural or phonemic level. So depending upon the information processing, that is coding, it will be, you will be able to remember or recall information. So how we can like recall or like enrich your coding part? So what are the mechanisms that will be helping you to enrich your coding or like the information like conversion is known as, it can be elaboration. Okay, elaboration is linking the stimulus to other information that has already coded and that has already stored in you. So that means you will be able to connect the information, for example, how. Okay, so what does that mean? So that means, so how it is related to hard. Or, so we are connecting that. So that is what we call it as elaboration. Okay, then visual imagery. Okay, so the visual imagery technique also will be helping you to increase or like, so that also will be helping you to get a more number of, or your coding encoding will be more meaningful. It will make your encoding more deeper, and a lot of information will be, you will be able to store that or retrieve that. Then dual coding theory, that means semantic and visual coding. So for example, there can be semantic codings or there can be visual. So different types of coding. So visual things are there, meaning, so you are looking at visual picturing, all that is happening. Then meaning making is happening. So all those two things together can help you in your retention or recall. So that is what then like referent coding. That means where you can look at so you will be connecting that to your personally relevant information or like favorite material. All those information you will be connecting, or you will be able to uh, re- recall, or if you are able to connect to that. For example, when you are studying certain years, so you are connecting that to your like date of like now, or some of the major important dates in your life or years in your life. And when you're studying history and you are trying to connect that, and if you are doing that, so what happens is that you will be able to get more connections or more meaning, and you will be able to recall those information in a better way. Okay, so then when it comes to the storage, so there are different explanations. So storage means, again, how much information, the coded information you will be able to store at different levels. Okay, on the one of the earliest model says that, which was like proposed by Plato, and they say that each like our memory storage is something like a block of watts. Okay, that means, so we have a, so like, so each the y like block is there. So we will be like adding to that, add like comparing, so adding one by one. So that was their understanding. Other one the storage, like for example, you have a block, so and you will be storing that. Then the other blocks will be there. Then the all the information will be stored in different blocks. Okay, but the later the theories, the information processing theories. That means that it is not like something like a block of certain like section or certain, but it is a process. That is what it is saved, mainly Atkinson and Schifrin model, then Broadbent model, then Norman model. All of them are focusing on the storage as a process, okay, rather than a discrete like unit. Then like they divide this so, and these processing theories are the theories which are dividing the memory into three major stages, three major storage capacities, that is sensory, short term, long term. Okay, so what is this sensory? Already we discussed, and I'm just coming in that one of the theories, Atkinson and Schifrin's model theory. And the first theory, the sensory model. So the information is stored at the sensory level for a temporary period of time. The capacity is very high, but the duration is very low. The information will be, hearing will be for few seconds, 1 second or less than 1 second, but for hearing will be for few seconds. That's what the storage capacity. So what happens is that from the information, when the information is coming to the sensors or sensory storage, so the process of attention take place. So we have different theories explaining the process of attention, that leads selection, or like broader and narrowing, or like bottleneck theory, all that. So because by explaining the process through the process of attention, so those stimuluses or those informations or those information which are stored at the sensory level, which receives attention, will be moving from sensory to the next stage, which is known as short term. And again, the short term memory is brief, and the capacity is again limited, and it will be maximum is less than 20 less than 20 seconds the duration you will be getting there. So if so, how the information from short term will be moving to the long term, that is mainly through the process of elaborative rehearsal. That means, so we will be trying to get more meaning to that, or we will be trying to connect that to the information at the short-term memory to other information that that you have learned, or that is already stored in the memory, or you will be trying to elaborate something, or you will be trying to connect or making new meaning to the already stored information. All that will be helping you for elaborative rehearsal. Okay, that process is known as elaborative rehearsal. So when you're doing that or meaning making process or semantic, all that helps you to move the information from long term, like short term to the long term. Okay, so in the long term memory, the capacity is relatively like the very like permanent, and we are not, or the capacity is unlimited, and we are not sure about the duration or like. So what we should say is that it's long term or permanent, and relatively the information that is stored in the long term memory is permanent, but so what happens is that once it, even though it is permanent, so some certain we are experiencing certain situations where we know that we learned it everything, but we are not able to recall it. So there can be something called forgetting that is happening. And why this forgetting is happening is that the cues that you are used while storing the information from short term to the long term, that is the elaborative the reversal cues or elaborative cues, these are the cues which will be helping you to retrieve the information from the long-term memory, and those cues may not be matching. So that is why we may be like we may experience the forgetting. That is the one explanation. So we'll be coming to that in detail. So if the retrieval cues are not matching, so what happens is that we won't be remembering certain things. Okay. So earlier I have asked you something, right? So who gave the concept of like the magical phenomena 7 plus or minus 2 as the capacity of the sensory memory or like, so this is the person that is George Sperling. So he is the one he has done certain good number of researches when it comes to sensory memory and the sensory memory storage, all that. Okay, you can just check that. Okay, so you'll be able to check that in the text, and then George Miller. Okay, so this so always try to understand that those two the key figures. One is Alex Sperling. He was mainly on the sensory, and the other Miller was mainly on the short-term memory. Okay, and its capacity, that is 7 plus or minus 2, that is the magical number. Those two individuals that you can keep in mind. Then I think all these. Okay, so this is coming about the checking. Okay, so for example, so again, so what happens is that then capacity we have discussed. Okay, then 7 plus 7 plus 2 or minus 2. Again, for example, certain informations. So what happens is that so certain like break there are we are using different techniques to store the information or to increase this number, that is 7 plus or minus 2. So those are, so what we call it as chunking. That means, so for example, so the word that we need to remember here is how many words. So we have 3, 6, 9, and 12 words are there, right? So how you will be able to remember these 12 words? So our capacity is something like, so the maximum capacity is stated as 11 plus, that is 9, between 9 and 5, but we have to learn a word of like 12. How you will be doing that? For that, what we'll be doing, we'll be making that the word, even though like the word is a like a nonsense word, so we'll be breaking down into like smaller unit or meaningful unit, and then like we'll be trying to remember that, and that process is known as what? Checking. Okay. chunks, so we will be making the meaningful chunks, and these chunks will be helping you in that. Okay, so here this is one way of doing it. So if you are doing in this way, again the difficulty will be there. But if you are using this way, that is FBI, like NBC, CIA, IBM, so it will be like meaningful chunks. So that will help you to learn, or quicker recall will be there. Then always there was a like assumption that the short-term memory is something like the working memory, and the working memory, the major working memory and the short-term memory is different. And one of the major difference is that short-term memory, when we say it as short-term memory, so what happens? It is a storehouse. Okay, that means the information is stored there, and information is not processed there. The storing only happening there. So or that means no coding is happening. Encoding is not taking place there. But when it comes to the working memory, so what happens is that, so there both the storage as well as encoding take place in working memory. So that is the difference. Sometimes, so what happens is that the short-term memory acts as a working memory, and so they both the storage and uh, storage as well as code encoding taking place. So that is why we are saying that both are not the same. So they are different. Okay, and Alan Bradley is the one who came up with the concept of working memory, and he came up with a bigger model of working memory. So what happens is in working memory, so what happens is that he came up with the four the different the information. So how the information will be moving from short-term memory to long-term memory. That is, there is something like visual spatial sketch part is there. So where you will be able to clearly identify the visual spatial discrimination of the stimulus. Then phenomenological loop will be mainly looking into the meaning making process, central executive, and then episodic buffer. Then central executive will be combining all the four, all these three together will be helping them in what maintenance rehearsal, and then that information will be moved. So from those information, like through the process that is happening in the working memory, the information will be moved from what working memory to the long-term memory. So that is the working memory model by Bradley. Then we have what is known as what, just because I have few like I have added more informations here. I'm just skipping that. Now like we have the long-term memory. So there the long-term memory, how the information is stored in the long-term memory. So, okay, so that's what they will be looking at. So already we know that the capacity is very like uh, huge, so we don't have it like it is, and the information stored is for permanent, but still we experience some kind of forgetting, and there are different uh, theories for that, and how we can study about this like brain stimulation so what we can do is that if there are certain brain stimulation studies are there which helps us to identify that stimulating certain regions can trigger certain memories. Okay, so even though you are not clearly aware of that, or not even though you are not able to recall that, so those are the certain like the stimulations, brain stimulation, mainly like Penfield studies, Wilder and Penfield. So they were doing certain brain surgeries. So during that so what happened is after brain surgeries, so people reported triggering certain lost memories. They were able to get recall certain new information which they lost. That happened because of the stimulation that is happening at the sections of the brain during the surgery. Then another one is like the flashbulb memories. For example, another type of memory that we can call it as flashbulb memory. That means mainly you will be having like an unusually vivid and detailed collection of a moment and events. For example, there are, for example, so can anyone give me an example for flashbulb memory? Any example for flashbulb memory? Okay, for example, so when some like you hear some accidents or some like important person's death, so at natural disaster, okay, so natural disaster, you will be clearly knowing in detail what you were doing and how you were at what place when you heard that like an incident, all that, right? So there is something like a flashback memories. So there are questions about the accuracy of the like the flashback memories, but still a lot of researches are there. And so are there like no, so there will be again, so there are debates on whether this short-term memory and long-term memory are really separate or like yeah, because so why they are asking is that so what like always the memory construction process and happening, and from the information through the rehearsal, the information from long-term memory will be coming back to the short-term memory, and it will be working in the working memory like a RAM, and then again information will be stored there. All these processes are happening, so that is why they have a doubt regarding this part, whether these are permanent like or whether these are two separate. Again, so the semantic coding, then like the different types of processing that is happening, all those that we have discussed. Then two more theories we need to discuss regarding memory, that is one is a conceptual hierarchical model, which is how the information is stored in the long-term memory. Okay, so what they have stored is that this is one model that they are proposing. This is one model that they are proposing. This is by Bauer and others. This is known as what hierarchy model. Okay, so what they considered is that so hierarchy means that there is a structure. Okay, so what happens is that so consider that we are looking at minerals. Okay, on the top you have the first level is minerals. Okay, even in minerals, the next level is we can classify that into two groups. One is can be metals, and the other can be stones. Okay, then so that is the second level. Then the third category is in metals itself. So we can have what rare, then common, and we have alloys. Then the other side we have stones. Again, precious stones are there. Then like masonry stones are there. Okay, so then again, if you're looking at okay, rare, that means aluminum, silver, gold. All those are the rare metals. Then most common metal, sorry, platinum. So then most common metals are the aluminum, copper, lead, iron. Then we have like a bronze, steel, brass, that is alloys. When it comes to the other side, stones, so they have like emerald, diamond, ruby, all that, the precious stones. Then the other side you have marble, slate, granite, limestone, all that they're the masonry stones. So now when so this is the structure of a like mineral. The same like we have the conceptual hierarchical structure for different things. Okay. So now when you see certain things, you will be placing that information in that correct hierarchical structure, which will be helping you. For example, now when you see a certain thing, for example, when you see like a a dog. So what comes there? It can be like in animal structure. Okay, the conceptual hierarchy can be animal. In that, what can there can be something like wild and domestic. So we can then in domestic want, then again different class. So you can come up with a different classification, and in that where you will be placing the cat or the dog. So that is what. So there is a hierarchical level. So what based on the like the nature of the task or the nature of the information. Okay, so you're replacing that. For example, when you say, like when I say brass means all this information, that means it is a metal and it is an alloy and it is a part of mineral. All those information it is. So when I say like bronze, all these are there. So all these are the assumed meaning when I say bronze, right? Because of this hierarchical structure. So that is the one theory how the information is stored or like. And then the other theory is like the scheme networking theories. Okay, how the networking theories are or how the information is stored. So if you're looking at this, it will be helping you to form or get an clarity on networking theories. That is networking theories here is, for example, look at here. So the fire engine. So that is one schema or that in one information. Okay. So the moment that you hear that fire engine, so what happens? There are certain other words which are related to that will be getting stimulated. For example, when I say so always fire engine means it will be connected to some kind of fire. Okay, then there will be like that red color of that or orange color though. Then there is the truck or house or like an ambulance, orange fire. All those relevant the other connected informations also will be getting triggered. Okay, and when I say orange again, so that is orange, so that means it can green or yellow, or that means there is color. Okay, when I say red, or like when we hear that red, how that word is got stimulated is that the color of the fire engine is red. But when it comes to red means orange, green, yellow, all those are the colors that networking is connected and that is getting triggered. Okay, so when it comes to the other side, so you have red. From that, it is apple, cherries, pears, all the fruits which are connected again coming stimulated. Then again the other side, red, sunset, then sunrise, cloud, all those are red. Then when it comes to the other, the rose, flowers, like violet, all those colors and like the flowers are coming there. Okay, that means from one single word, like these meaningful connections are there, semantic meaningful networks are there. So just triggering one network or one section can trigger or stimulate the other section, and thereby other sections, other information can be getting stimulated. Okay, so that is why when you hear certain word, so you will be, so even when you're thinking about one thing, so you will be getting connected information, and so the your thought process is reaching somewhere, and we'll be thinking about a totally clueless one, like totally different topics will be coming to our picture or coming to our mind, right? So how is that is happening? That is happening just because this the process what we call it as this connection. Okay, because this connection helps like networking helps the people to imagine. Even this has a certain impact. Now what I will show you is that I will show you the previous picture. Okay, now just see this picture. Okay, just see this picture, and can you guess like whose room is this, or what are the informations, or what are the objects are there in the. Okay, so view this picture and see this is a picture of a professor. Okay, of his room. This is a picture of his professor's room. Okay, so now I'm just, if I ask you to recall the information that are, what are the objects that are there in that, So what will happen is that, so you will be recalling a lot of informations or a lot of things, or you can like a lot of things which you which you have seen in this picture and which are not seen in this picture, and but that information will be connected to something called which will be related to the professor. For example, you will be finding books there, you will be studying something, study materials there, all that. But if you are looking at here, you won't be finding anything of that sort. Because how did those comes? Because those schemas, okay, those class schemas are getting activated when I say professor. That is, here when I say the professor, the book schema, then the typing schema, the pen schema, all those are getting activated. So what happens, you remember all that. And when I am asking you to record it all that. That is how the semantic networking theories are coming. Okay. Again, so here is again another one networking model. So because each the levels are there, again the information is mutually connected, and there due to this parallel networking or multiple networking that are happening. So what will happen is that information when you're getting certain information or certain storage happening at one place, certain information will be processed parallelly at another place, another information will be processed, and everything will together will make the meaning and what you are intending. So multiple different sections, parallel processing, different processing together brings the meaning or like helping you in storage process. All these are the different the theories that explains storage. Okay, so I think like now like I've taken a lot of time. So what I do that I'll just give you another like 5 minute break, and then we'll be coming back, and then we will be solving few questions, and with that I think we'll be ending the session. Okay, so what I will request you is that, so now we can take a break for 5 minutes, and when you are back, kindly type out your response in the chat box so that I'll be aware that you are back. Okay, is it clear? Okay, so 5 minute break. Okay, are you all back? Are you all back? Okay, Rashmi says yes. Virakshi says yes. So what about others? Okay, so the final part, that is forgetting part. Okay, so there are different explanations that we can get for like why there is forgetting or what is that forgetting all that. Okay, so one of the first explanation is mainly the decay theory, which says that the information which is not processed. Okay, because once the information is stored there, and so what happens? So as a result of that, like if it is not taking there, so as a result of that, where like you can lose it. For example, if something is happening there, like for example, you place a certain iron there, so it can take rust, and then you may lose that. So that is the one theory. Then the other is wear and tear. That means so because of the use of the different networks, all that, as a result of that, what happens is that certain amount of information can be lost. Okay, so that is the second. Then the third theory of forgetting is that the repression. That means so what happens is that so when you have certain like painful information or experiences. So what happens is that you repress something. So which is as a defense mechanism. We repress those information, and then what happens? Those informations won't be remembering it because those informations are painful, and you simply chose to forget or not to remember that. So that is the different the repression there comes there. Then there is something called intentional forgetting. That means so if removing like inaccurate or like useless information from memory. Intention, for example, so certain informations you forget, you do not want to remember, intentionally you're trying to forget it. That intentional forgetting is there. Then something like childhood amnesia is there. That means those informations which you were you experiencing in your childhood, or like when you were at 1 year or like 2 years, like those information memories before like 2 years. So you have or like a stock of only one or two incidents you will be remembering. What happened to the rest? Why you are not remembering the rest of the information? So that's known as what the infantile amnesia. So that is there. Then we have something called retroactive, inferences, interferences. Sorry, not inferences. Sorry, interferences. Interferences are taking place. As a result of that, also the information can be lost. The interference can be two types. One is previously the information. One is known as what the retroactive, where the information being learned the currently is interference with the previous experiences. Okay, previously learned one. The current one interferes with the previously learned one. So that is retroactive. And the proactive means when you are learning a new information, the old learned information interferes with the current one. Okay, that means when you are learning a new information, so what happens when you are learning a new information? That new information interferes with the previously learned information, and won't be recalling, or you will find it difficulty in recalling the previous one. That is one. The other one is when you are learning a new information, so what happens is that the previously learned information blocks the learning of the new one. Okay, that is the second one. Those two are the two the interferences. This also can cause again what we call it as forgetting. Then always there are other factors which are very key in a remembering process. That is the mood, or that is you maybe remember, you can remember this word like mode congruent like memory. Okay, then the situations or the specific, the nature of the stimulus, environment, all those are also very important, plays a very important role in the memory process, or like for example the recall process, because if the retrieval cues are not matching, that means for example if you are learning in a quiet and very peaceful environment, so if the recall is also taking place at the same environment, there will be higher recall rate. And if the environment, if you are learning hearing music and something, and then and when you're writing the exam, you are not hearing the music or anything. So what happens is that the recall rate can be lower. And if you are hearing music and then writing exam, then there can be a better recall rate because of the same environment of learning and recall. So all these can have an impact on the memory and recall and the loss of information, which is forgetting. Okay, so now we are looking at the physiological aspects, or like which are the brain areas which are playing a pivotal role in memory process. Okay, the first one is the brain structure that has a important like a role in temporal lobe and hippocampus. Okay, this plays a key role in transfer of information from short-term memory to long-term memory. That is, temporal lobe and hippocampus plays a key role in passing the information from, transferring the information from short-term memory to long-term memory, and any damage that is happening in this area, which area, that is temporal lobe or hippocampus area, can have a deficit in explicit memory. Okay, that can have an impact on your explicit memory. Okay, then there are certain portions of optical portions of like optical lobe. Which is optical lobe? Where will be the optical lobe? Where in the brain structure, where you will find the optical lobe? Is it in the front or at the back?
So it's at the posterior part of the brain.
Yeah. Okay, so those regions mainly like the optical lobes. So any happens that damage that is happening at that regions as well can have an impact on your implicit memory. Damage to temporal and hippocampus can have an impact on your explicit memory, while optical lobe portions of optical lobe regions can have an impact on your implicit memory. Okay, then again hypothalamus and hippocampus, like thalamus. Okay, they also have certain mainly a key role in amnesia, which is observed observed in like Korsakoff the syndromes. What is this Korsakoff syndrome? Can anyone tell me? What is it? Any idea? Anyone is aware of what is it? Because I think this is something related to clinical psychology, where you will be learning it.
It's related to memory loss, I guess.
Yeah, it is related to memory loss, but due to what? That is the
So due to alcohol.
Yeah, substance abuse, right?
Why, sir? I didn't hear.
Okay, so figure it out. Okay, mainly related to the clinical area, substance abuse, related to substance use, all that, and those that can have like which is if, like, in the patients with those same symptoms, they found out that there is some kind of structural damages that are happening to thalamus region and hypothalamus region. Okay, then there is something called like acetylcholine based systems in brain, especially those portions from basal for brain to hippocampus and cortex region. That is, so what happens is that acetylcholine is plays a major it's a neurotransmitter, right? And that neurotransmitter has a significant role presence in those regions of the brain, and any disturbance in the acetylcholine level, that can create a certain kind of amnesia. Okay, mainly in Alzheimer's diseases and Alzheimer's patients. So they have identified the disturbed rates of presence or absence of acetylcholine in those brain structures. Okay, so the brain areas which are key in learning or the memory process is temporal lobe, hippocampus, optical lobe, then thalamus, hypothalamus, and the regions of hippocampus and cortex, cerebral cortex, and the level of acetylcholine. All these are the biological basis for the memory that you will be able to get. Okay. Then one more type of the amnesia or forgetting that we can find is that one is it can be one is mainly the retrograde amnesia and the other is mainly the anterograde amnesia. Okay, so what is this retrograde amnesia? For example, so the memory of the events are impaired. For example, in retrograde memory, so consider that you had all the previous life experiences. Then the amnesia producing event, that it can be a damage to the brain structure or anything, or like any accident or anything that. So then the later event. So what happens is that in a retrograde amnesia cases, the patient will be remembering only the events or incident that took place after the accident. The prior information they won't be remembering at all. Okay, that is what we call it as retrograde amnesia. Okay, when it comes to anterograde amnesia means they will be remembering so only those information which are prior to the accident. That means only the earlier information they will be remembering. They won't be remembering the new information. So if they are not able to remember any new information, so what will happen? So that means their long-term information, like something happened between short-term and long-term in memory. So they have a short-term memory. So there will be like few informations are there, but from short-term memory, the information is not going to long-term memory. That is where in anterograde amnesia that is happening there. But uh, in the retrograde amnesia, what happens is that they won't be able to recall any previously learned information or events or memory. They will be totally losing that. But from the accident itself, all the information after that, they will be perfectly fine. So the classical case studies of HM study, HM, and those other the studies will be helping you to understand what is this retrograde amnesia and what is this anterograde amnesia and how it is different, all that. Okay, so now I think with that, I think I could rush through all those content. Okay, because I know that I was literally rushing through all this kind of content, and I could give you a few questions regarding that. But what I would suggest that if you to get a mastery of those these concepts, what I would suggest is that try to read these chapters, that is the learning chapter, the memory chapter. So prior you should have completed the sensation chapter and biological basis of behavior. Okay, that is in sensation, all those organs, neural pathway, all that. Biological basis of behavior, then the sensation, then learning and memory. Read those chapters, then solve as many as questions you can in that. Okay, so first take a question paper, solve it, and if certain questions are from certain area which you are not familiar, try to get those answers and note down those areas, then read on that area, then you can do that. Okay, so there you will be getting n number of solve the question paper, solve the question paper, solve it, then cross check with the answer. First, don't you look at the answer key. First, complete the entire question or the answer key. Sorry, the question paper, finish it, then cross check with the answer key whether you were right or wrong. Okay, so keep on that practice. That will also help you a lot. I think with that note, I'm just concluding. So thank you for all. So if you have any doubt, then I'll be able to help you in that. So, or you can just tell me like how was your learning like. Usually when we are introducing just to complete one section, that is if you are completing the memory and forgetting, that itself will take around 12 to 14 hours. I was just rushing through the key concepts. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for all. So, so if you have any doubt, you can ask me. So which textbook or which are the basic textbook that you are following for preparing paper 2 of basic like psychology? Those textbooks I referred will be, yeah. So those are all those are the solved question papers, right? The solved the question but I'm just asking a textbook means the resource book, either the last one, the last class I suggested to. That can be the basic reading material. Then like Morgan and King or like then the themes and variation. That can be the basic textbooks. So read that textbook. First read the syllabus, read the textbook. Then you can look at then you can read the questions. Okay, because if you're reading just a publication, that one you won't be getting that much research depth or anything of that. Okay, so with that I think I'm just concluding. So thank you for your participation, all that. So if you have any doubt, so you have my details, right? So you can be in touch with me. Okay, so you can contact me. I'll be able to help you in that. Okay, thank you. So thank you all. Thank you. Bye. So happy Diwali to all. So enjoy your day.